Sziasztok! Szegedi Anita vagyok, és most egy kis bemutatót fogok nektek tartani
Szegedi,
arról, hogy
and now I'm going to give you a brief introduction on what it's like to be a woman in gaming as well as in developing.
És elsőnek igazából szeretnék bemutatkozni.
I'd like to introduce myself, first of all. I was always a nerd, and I've been playing for 20 years now, actively. We always had a computer at home, and with my sister we were always arguing and fighting over the computer, and this is how my interest started in this area. Later I ended up in sociology. At university I learned and studied and taught gender sociology, and this showed me how important it was to have diversity everywhere. I realized that diversity was very important for me, and because of this I started to deal with technology, because before I thought that as a woman this is not something for me, but the university showed me how important it was. I started to work as an indie game developer. I was trying to get to know all of the areas in gaming later. I started dealing with programming, then graphics, and later with game design. This is something very complicated because there are separate a lot of areas here, and they are very complex. It was a bit too much for me to understand everything, and it took a year for me to discover all of these areas. But finally I realized that I really wanted to deal with that, and I became a game developer. I was completely learning on my own at home, so not with assistance, and I like to talk about this because from this you can see that you only need commitment to learn something. While I was developing at home, I came up with the idea of establishing a blog about this, because it was very interesting to see how someone becomes a developer and learns things on their own. And since then, I created the so-called developer pixie persona, which is the name of my blog. I have two goals with this blog. I want to show you that you can do this as a woman, because the majority of women think that this is not something for them. And this blog is a nice way of showing you girls, showing the girls how it is possible to still become a game developer, a gamer. And you can do it. And this is also some help for the beginners, how it's worth starting, etc., so that they are not afraid of starting to learn game developing, because at here in Hungary there are no courses in game developing. There are no schools, and this is why it's very important to support the beginners somehow. Now I've been working for 2 years as a game developer producer, and since then I'm a producer. Now let's talk a little bit about the games themselves. I think it's very interesting to see how the proportion of men and women is in games. This is a survey from America, performed in 2016. And the proportion of women is smaller, but this is not a bad proportion. The problem is that in previous years, the proportions were more equal, and still this is almost 50-50. But what is very interesting is that a lot of people think that the average female player is around 44 years old and is at home with the kids and is playing with her smartphone. No, this is not true. And I checked out the data. Both genders thinks that the most attractive games are the strategic games. Of course, this depends on platforms as well, but I'd like to reiterate that there are stereotypical female and male games, but still, there's not only special female games, there are also special male games as well. It is very important that for both genders, the social aspect is very important in a game. They are trying to connect with other players, they try to communicate with each other, and they try to establish a community. It's interesting to see this social framework, and very often girls are afraid because of this social aspect. Why? Because very often the social aspect is not only present within the game, but also outside the game. And here I'd like to mention that very often girls socialize in a way that game is not for them, computer is not for them. They are afraid of the computer, and they not even start it, or they feel that this is something which is not attractive. If they say, yesterday I got home and I was playing with PlayStation, this is not attractive to say in company, among friends. This is what they think. And on the other hand, there are bad experiences. Very often, girls are spoiled in games, and men try to compliment them and help them a lot, and it is not their own achievement. Or they are very critical with the girls, too critical with the girls, and even with the smallest mistakes, they attack them. And therefore they don't want to play competitive games. And this is where the stereotypes are and expectations are. If someone says, I'm a gamer and I'm a girl, or I'm a gamer and I'd like to be a professional and I'm a girl and I would like to go to competitions, somehow for girls, this is an inner must that this is not for them. They should not make such a career. And I think that this is completely outside stereotypes and due to the social expectations. And we could overcome this by special competitions organized for girls and for women, because community has a strength, and here we can share our experiences with each other. In game developing, this is almost the same. Very often girls don't want to think about developing as a career because they think it's too much for them, not for them. It's very interesting because game developing is something which is very complex. It is comprised of several partial areas, and it requires a very diverse scene of people, a lot of different people, and we need a lot of different people here. And still girls think that, oh, you need to know programming for game developing, or you have to be good at maths. This is not true at all, because even with the smallest game, you need to find 3-4 different roles, and they have to cooperate, and here we need different perspectives in game developing. Despite this, in 2016, the proportion of female game developers was only 14%. And a big part of them were working as working in graphics. It is not very sad, but for me it's a bit sad still, because this shows that graphics is connected with beauty and cosmetics, and this is where they get a bigger role. Although it would be so nice if there would be more women in the whole process.
És igazából ez az, hogy miért vagyunk ennyire kevesen, ez nem csak
Why are we so little in game developing? This is true in gaming, and this is true in professional gaming. Our proportion is very little. This is because of our inner limits, because we don't believe that we can do it, and we limit ourselves in the first case. And also in second line, there is the opinion of the environment. When I started back then, and I started to develop games, and I started to be involved in the gamer community, I saw that in the professional environment, everyone is so inclusive, and I don't care if you're a girl or a boy. If you perform, if you're good, they accept you, they respect you. But it was very surprising for me that my direct environment was very stereotypical. For example, when I was talking to friends or my relatives, I'm a game developer. First, they couldn't understand what I was doing, and then they said, "Oh, this is games. This is not serious, and you don't even earn money with it. This is not serious work." And I couldn't explain them that this is serious work, we do serious things, and I earn serious money with it. And the third thing I found is, "Oh, this girl makes coffee for the gamers, you shouldn't take her seriously." And I was so surprised, because they were my own friends and my own relatives, the closest people to me, and still I couldn't explain this to them. So there are these inner limits on the one hand, and the limits from the environment. And this is why most girls are afraid and are deterred from starting to deal with such areas. But I think that both areas, developing as well as gaming, are very inclusive, and if you really want to do it, if you're committed, you will have a place there. Also, I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that you can win a lot if you open up your doors or windows towards these technical areas, because with this diversity you will experience different perspectives, a lot of new things, and it's important for your development. And also for gaming development, it's important because gamers can also develop with new perspectives from women, for example. So I think that it is a good thing if you really dare to say that, yes, I would like to deal with this, and this is what makes me happy. Of course, for this, you need to get rid of the prejudice. This would be a huge advantage, because as you could see in the previous slide, this is very often just inside limits. So you force yourself. You have to live up to certain expectations, outside pressure. But if you forget about prejudice, and more women are collected and starting to deal with this, more and more people will be brave enough to start dealing with it. And then communication will be improved in these areas, and also performance. Why? Because if there's new people coming from outside, they are willing to work much harder, they are more enthusiastic. This can bring fresh blood, and it's very good that there are more and more inclusive environments. People are supportive. There are community meetings, competitions, developing game developer meetings, and they are being organized in a grassroots manner, so it is worth connecting to them. So what is the lesson to be learned from this? I think the secret of becoming a good gamer or game developer, just do it. Don't care about the others. If it makes you happy, then go and do it. Thank you very much for your kind attention. If you have any questions, ask, write me an email or come up to me in the break. Thank you very much.